Just a little bit longer till midnight, and then it's hello 2020! A new decade. My decade. This is the decade I'm finally gonna make something of myself. Me, a guy in his 30s with universally unrecognized talents and a useless degree.
Don't forget the pending recession.
How could I? Yep, the 20s are gonna be great for people in their 30s who dress like they're in their 20s.
A hoodie under a denim jacket will always be a good look.
That's what I've been saying. Hey, thanks for coming to launch fireworks with me on a night I'm gonna call Trouble at Wildfire Gulch. This place doesn't actually have a name since it burned down 10 years ago. 10 years ago tonight, actually, for New Year's 2010. I was actually there for it. I was the only one there. The cop who came to celebrate with me afterwards thought I was some guy named Prime Suspect, but I don't see that guy much anymore. Nobody does. 5, 4, 3!
Wait. A moment like this needs the perfect soundtrack for the city of Los Angeles by a Mr. Randy Newman.
I love LA. We love it. Play it, Greg. Play it. Happy New Year! We love it!
Hello, roaring!
Oh my God, somebody started a fire.
Look at that fire go. It's reached the Porter Ranch gas leak.
We love it! The explosion kicked up all the nuclear fallout from Santa Susana.
We love it! The nuclear fallout radiated all the illegal guns in the city, and there's a nuclear gang war.
We love it! Now everyone's trying to make it in time for the nuclear gang war, so every freeway in the city is backed up.
We love it! All the cars running heated up the atmosphere that melted the snow on the grapevine. That created a mudslide that knocked out a power cable that started another fire. We love it!
Oh God, the firefighters are trying to get to the fire, but all the Instagram influencers are forcing them to take pictures with them first.
Oh man, now an open mic broke out.
Dating in LA isn't hard. You're hard to be around.
The fire evaporated the reservoir. Now we have a double drought.
And all this steam's mated with the smog and created a plague of darkness.
The presence of an obvious biblical plague has reawakened the Spanish missions, and they're enslaving everyone in a 10-mile radius to make more orange grove ads to get people from Ohio to move here.
Now the coalition of concerned citizens on nextdoor.com are marching on the missions to free the slaves, but they got distracted by some homeless people on the way and are just belittling them instead.
And all this was one big distraction while the city council passed an ordinance that all houses in the city will cost a minimum $4 million.
You got a friend in me.
But hey, it's always a cool 71 degrees. Even this wildfire that you started.
What?
We love it! Da-da-da-da-da-da! We love it! Happy New Year! We've been practicing this.
Oh.
For like a month.
I didn't think it was for this.
That whole intro was a practice. All of the intros we've ever done have been warm-ups for the current episode.
Yeah, for the thing that I had to say immediately after the theme song.
Yeah.
Okay. Cowboy! Did I do it right? I know I'm a little behind.
Star Wars! Back to the Future! Baseball! Happy Baseball!
Happy Baseball Day!
Happy Baseball Day to you. I'm Daniel Zaffron.
I'm Greg Gonzalez. Hi.
You have glitter on your head.
How so?
I thought you'd never bring it up.
On my hat or my head?
The more you move, the more I'm seeing it.
Did you know that I'm early David Bowie?
I thought
I'm
I
earlier
knew
at David Bowie.
God damn it, I knew it.
That's how I know you.
Take out that contact. Yeah, that's David Bowie.
You're David Jones. That's right.
His name is Davy Jones,
Yeah,
isn't it? That's
probably
ridiculous.
And also because David Bowie is a much better name than Davy Jones.
Is it?
Yeah.
Greg, Davy Jones. You got built-in mythos.
Hi, everybody.
You still have glitter on your face.
I'm not going to get rid of what you dragged me out at this ungodly hour to record this miserable podcast.
How dare you bring me out at 7:30 on a Saturday? I should be at the spa right now. The glitter spa, which is where I came from, which is why I have glitter all over me.
I was watching last night. I could not sleep. Okay, I watched Muppet Christmas Carol, and then it was over. I'm like, I miss it, and I watched it. So last night I watched Muppet Christmas Carol 2 times.
That's ridiculous.
And I watched Scrooge go to bed and fall asleep, and I was so envious.
Whenever I see Scrooge in his house, even though it's supposed to be miserable, I'm like, ooh, that looks nice. I wish I could go to bed like him and not be interrupted like him. I've never seen this movie before.
Hi. We hope that all our Aussie fans are okay. All the Aussie meeklings out there are okay, because I heard that Australia is on fire right now.
Again? During Christmas? Well, I know one of our Australian fans is fleeing, so maybe we have a culprit we might want to investigate.
Check him at Ellis Island or wherever they take people.
When he flies into Ellis Island, when he docks on the torch of the Statue of Liberty, like Air Force One refueling.
The check-in center at the Statue of Liberty. Fight this French statue, and then you're American.
Fight this sultry French woman. Prove you love America. Kill her. Snap her neck like an American.
Now you really love liberty.
By killing liberty.
That's like when Luke Skywalker goes into the forest.
Let liberty die. Kill it if you have to. Star Wars has come out. Let's talk about that now.
The movie that neither one of us can see right now.
Yeah, I'm still not done with December. I just can't get over it.
Yeah,
what did you do? If you love it so much, why don't you get married to it? You seem to do that a lot. What did you do in December?
You go first.
Well, mine's a little abstract.
Oh God, I have no. You pick something out of the bag and like the foam is in the way and I can't see it.
Observe this cube.
What do you see here? You went to therapy and you're pulling up a Rorschach. What do you see? Because my therapist got really weird when I said 3 dead cats on the road.
3 dead cat penises. So my thing, if you've read between the lines of this podcast, you know that for the past 2 years I've been living in a waking hell.
Oh Jesus Christ.
I've had a horrible neighbor situation for the past 2 years of loud music till 4 a.m, screaming, gunshots, drug dealing, crazy stuff, smells.
I know about all of it.
Well, I treat you as something of a journal. You're something of my Tom Riddle's journal.
Greg, pull up the text from October.
Anyway, that situation's over. Those people are gone. But I know a lot of people are probably in not nearly as bad of a situation as I have been in. No one could possibly have ever suffered as much as I have.
Yeah, these last 2 years.
But these last 2 years have been so hard for me and my family, and I can only apologize. A lot of people are probably, from what I understand, are in situations with neighbors who play loud music and loud bass all the time. And it's bad people who can't be stopped. And sure, I've been lobbying for, if you live in an apartment, you can't own a subwoofer. And sure, I've been laughed out of Brad Sherman's office.
Sure, I've had many sit-down meetings with LAPD to talk about this.
Well, that's another thing.
Okay, before you continue, you have become late-era Lenny Bruce, obsessed with litigation.
You mean a legend?
You mean right? You mean within his rights?
You mean really awake? Completely clear-eyed? Yeah, the FBI's tapping my hamburgers.
They're after the Super Jew.
Which I've inherited the mantle of the Super Jew. Is that what you're trying? It's Christmas, Greg. This is my time. And that's another thing. Like, not only did I have these horrible neighbors, but if you're in this situation, your management is not going to do anything for you. They don't care. And the LAPD are not going to do anything for you because they don't care.
Nobody's hip-hop, I know. I dialed 911 a long time ago.
I mean, sure, if I was in Brentwood, the police would be there right away. But in Sherman Oaks, nobody is going to help you if you're in that situation. It's bad. If you can't move, what you should get is something I got to drown out the sound, because people kept saying like, oh, you just get a white noise machine for that music that's in your ear at 3 a.m. But a white noise machine, or like Rain or something like that, that doesn't block bass frequencies, because that's white noise, but there's brown noise as well, which is lower frequency, like the hum of an air conditioner, which you're hearing in the background. Let's listen to it for a second. So white noise will not block out bass, but if you get a brown noise machine, it will. So what I got is it's Electrofan, apostrophe L Ectrofan, and it has like different settings for brown noise, and if it's really bad it won't, but if you have no other option, it will help you if you need that for bad neighbors, which I'm sure a lot of people in Los Angeles have, because everyone lives in an apartment, especially people who listen to this, as I've seen from sending out shirts to people. I know
shirts which are no longer available. Please don't ask us.
Get back to us in a month. I drove by all these people's apartments that I sent these shirts to just to see what their situation was.
I couldn't afford shipping.
I dressed up as a postman, as I do. I killed all the neighborhood dogs, as a postman does. I fit into the character. But yeah, if you have a bad neighbor situation, you should consider that if it's driving you crazy with the bass. It neutralizes the sound. I know a lot of people are in this situation. The more I complain to people about it, they also said like, yeah, me too. People are bad. And it sucks that you have to buy something to be able to live comfortably, but nobody will ever help you and nobody will show you any consideration.
Do you think that brown noise drove you a little bit batty?
No,
your hair is not combed right now and you haven't blinked in like 2 minutes.
What are you talking about?
Let me show you the paperwork that I drew up about why I haven't combed my hair.
Well, if I comb my hair, then the FBI will listen to what my thoughts are.
The comb is how they transmit messages, and I don't need their messages. I got my own messages to worry about. I don't know what, I'm going to pick up the Federal Bureau of Investigation's messages in my hair? No thanks. That's how they get your DNA. Thank you, though. That is good, helpful information.
If you need it, it's a good alternative to city living.
My suggestion to you always was to just hit him in the mouth.
Oh, God, it would have felt so good, but then my fist would have hurt. If I hit him in the mouth, I would have validated his existence.
I'm glad that your situation's better. You deserve it.
Yeah.
We both deserve it.
My data plan deserves it. So what did you do in the past month? Did you have bad neighbors too in the past?
I mean, I lived in a gang house, so yeah, I didn't have bad neighbors. I was the bad neighbors. I got my master's degree while people were fighting in my kitchen, so I have some sympathy for you, but not a lot. I finished my sign painting class.
Oh.
At Trade Tech. Trade Tech's a wonderful school, by the way.
What do you want me to say?
Want me to hug you? Nobody hugged me.
I would say congratulations, but you're going right back in, so it's not full.
Yeah, I'm going for 2 more
Nothing's
classes.
ever really over.
You want to go see Star Wars right now? I kind of want to
I've been
stop
dropping
this.
subtle hints. Brown noise, like the noise Darth Vader's breathing apparatus makes.
I finished that. Trade Tech's a wonderful school. Only time I've ever had school spirit is at LA Trade Tech.
Weird.
I went to the Queen Mary after we did our episode. That's where I really went. It's the second time there. I have to make a correction, though, because I think that
you've probably cost a lot of listeners a lot of money.
Yeah.
That they could have spent on Electro fan.
It's not free to be aboard the Queen Mary. You have to buy a ticket, and that's $40.
That's insane.
What we did, Queen Mary will probably not do a field trip if I say this, but we made a reservation for a restaurant that's on the Queen Mary, and when we got on board, we're like, I'm not that hungry. So we just got drinks instead.
So if you make a reservation, you don't have to pay the admission?
No.
So you can just say like, hey, I'm going to the restaurant, and they're like, nah.
You have to make a reservation, though.
But what happens if you don't show up to the reservation?
Then they're not going to go through your phone and ask you. Or you can just always eat there.
Just claim you're a ghost.
That's what I've been trying to say in every situation. I'm DMV. I don't have to wait in line. I'm a ghost. I don't need to take a photo, and I feel like this fee should be less because I'm only half alive. I'm mostly a cold spot and an echo, so I don't know if you're going to charge me the whole thing or not. The Queen Mary is beautiful, though. I loved it. It's after doing all the research on it and then walking around like, wow, look at this. Look at, like,
this is what Daniel was talking about.
Trying to tell Edwin and Ada about it as they already heard the episode. They're like, yeah, we know. I'm like, yeah, but look, Winston Churchill sat here. And they're like, yeah, it says it right here on the plaque that you're.
Here, let's see how many times we can run under this door. I know how this ends. I'd like to go there, but I would definitely don't. I'm definitely not paying to get on that boat.
Yeah.
Let's get to our question for this month.
Oh, that's right. Also, someone made a correction that it's not Cunard, it's Cunard.
Who said this?
A source.
It can't be Cunard.
Joanna said it.
What has she ever been right about?
Anyways.
Oh, this question's from Joanna. Her question is, if you guys did an episode on anything outside of Los Angeles, what would you like to do? I didn't know an answer for me because I was only thinking I know what Greg's going to say.
Yeah, you got it right. I mean, I have a couple, maybe 3, but out loud when you ask the question, I'm like, Disneyland.
Yeah.
Easily Disneyland.
Your 3 are Disneyland, California Adventure, and Disneyland Hotel.
The parking lot to Disneyland, yeah. That gas station right outside of Disneyland.
My 3 favorite things outside of Los Angeles, in order.
I get Disneyland. I get why it's bad. I get why it's trash. I don't,
Trash?
I get.
Who said that's trash?
It's just like a corporate giant thing that I'll never be able to afford to go
great.
to again.
Yeah.
I still go through photos from the 60s, and I'm fascinated by early Disneyland, and I'm very interested in.
Well, yeah.
And it's also like it might as well be in Los Angeles. It's off the 5. Like it's off.
Okay,
I know how to take the streets there. If I can take the streets there, then it's pretty close.
Well, if you're going to accept Disneyland, you have to take all the rest of Orange County with it. Is that what you want, Greg?
That's exactly
Is that what you want?
it. We'll give them Venice Beach if they give us Disneyland.
Can't they be like a Guam? Like they're Los Angeles, but they can't vote in our elections.
I'm really interested in California history altogether. Like I like reading that book, Cross of Thorns, about the mission system. Like we have 2 here, but like all of the missions throughout California are really interesting. And there's like revolts, stories about Spanish, stories about different tribes battling it out in day-to-day lives. I'm very interested in that. Like everything California history interests me. I'd like to do an episode like Hammett versus Chandler, but Hammett had nothing to do with LA.
Yeah, I was thinking in the question, like we have to be talking about something close to Los Angeles. It can't just be like, I want to talk about the Yukon.
Yeah, but I do want to talk about the Yukon.
Yeah, I do. Of course I do. Of course I want to talk about the Yukon.
Like my dream is that we run out of things in LA and we just become like
a Smeekly.
Southwest. Yeah, or
as I've said before.
Don't do this to it. Don't region by region. Midwest Meekly.
Yeah, right. That'll be a quick month.
What are your answers?
I only have one answer, and I don't know if you're gonna. It is California Adventure, sure. The Santa Susana meltdown, because that happened in Simi Valley. But I know that you seem to feel that, like, well, it spread into here.
Yeah, it's right. It's like it's connected to us. It's like the Yukon's not connected to us, only like emotionally.
Well, this was a nuclear gold rush of sorts.
I find barriers like that arbitrary.
Listen to Mr. Lenny Bruce here.
Oh my God.
Unlock your mind, Daniel.
Like Manzanar's far. I mean, we're not.
Now we're getting into not Jonathan Gold. What is his name? Nathan Masterson. Nathan Masters.
Now we're getting into Nathan Masters territory.
Lost LA, and we're talking about Manzanar.
Yeah.
We're talking about Yosemite. Like I mean,
right.
Sure, you could stretch it if you're really desperate. If you really
wanted that Emmy.
Tapped out long. Sure, we can go for sweeps week and do an episode on the Yukon. Can we do the Yukon? You could argue me into, we can cover Santa Susana, but I consider that to be just outside of city limits, and that is something I'm interested in.
If you pitched it, I wouldn't stop you. I'm not, and I don't think
I'd like to see you try.
I don't think anybody's gonna be like, you crossed this line that's on the map here. Oh boy, oh yeah. You're gonna have to turn in your podcast. Turn in your gun and podcast.
Hang up the microphone.
There are clear barriers. Like there's like a giant desert in between, or not desert, but like there's a long stretch of nothing between us and Fresno, and that makes sense that we shouldn't talk about Fresno. There's not a long stretch.
Makes sense for a lot of reasons. We shouldn't talk about Fresno.
But there's not a long stretch in between us and Santa Susana, or us and Disneyland, or us and...
Well, Disney. I think there is a big stretch between us, because you're cherry picking with Disneyland, because you're saying, like, I like that, but I do not like the rest of that. And to be clear, we don't.
It feels more like LA than Orange County. Angel Stadium feels more like Orange County because it's giant and corporate, but not Disneyland, which is giant and corporate.
It doesn't count
because you say so. So okay, you're 51.49.
You really wanted that hamburger one day, and you didn't have any cash. You sold me a share.
Like, I think that there are obvious. We can't talk about that, and there's someone like, we could pull that, but I'm not going to fight for it.
Other than that, like, I can't think of anything like, even like Santa Barbara, which is still pretty, we have to go through Simi Valley and Camarillo and Oxnard, but even Santa Barbara, like, what do I want to talk about in Santa Barbara? McConnell's? The missions and the seizures by pirates.
The seizures by pirates. Santa Barbara is not LA, and there's a huge difference. I don't feel the same difference with Santa Susana. Maybe Simi Valley, but still, like Simi's connected to us in a lot of different ways, unfortunately.
Some things we give dual citizenship, but Disney...
I mean, I told almost an entire story that ended in Long Beach, and for 45 minutes it was
if it ends in Los Angeles or starts in Los Angeles or as a middle in Los Angeles, I'll allow it, but show me the proof that there's any fallout in this chat. Show me the proof.
Show me. You know that the fallout stop at that line right there.
Even the fallout knew. The nuclear activity.
I have to pay city fees? Los Angeles city fees? I'm not going to go there.
The taxes. I'll stay in Simi Valley with all these cops.
Cops and Marines.
We've made clear our boundaries. And
we respect them.
We respect boundaries. That's what we're all about now. Take off your shirt.
Show me your butt.
I like the top. You like the bottom. So let's get into this month. It's January. Okay. It's the 20s. Welcome to the 20s.
We did it.
That's not the 20s.
Well, yeah, the 20s is... Oh, God, you're right. It is. My baby, a ho-ho, when I held on a moonlight. Yeah, it's a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, it is a lot of Moonlight. Moonlight was the big new thing in the 20s, and it's coming back.
It was the only thing you could read by.
Yeah, that's why the werewolves started coming. Yeah, I can't wait for the new Gilded Age. I can't wait for the new Great Gatsby, the Greater Gatsby. I will die for the Greater Gatsby.
For
country and Great Gatsby.
I can't wait for Mustard Gas and Trench Warfare to come back.
Now, that was the 10s. We're out of the...
Oh, yeah, you're right.
World War I, II already happened a few years ago. This is the Gilded Age. Things are going great for everybody but Germany, and things are going to get real bad for our children.
And any American in the lower class.
Yeah, it's the Gilded Age. There is no lower class anymore.
Gilded. White.
Just like what we found up in the Yukon. The Gilded Rush. This month, we're going to talk about record stores. Record stores.
We're going to talk about record stores.
Yeah.
Want to say it again?
No.
Okay.
Let's start it off with my first one.
Please.
Before So skipping record.
I was gonna
put the needle on my record. So before there was Amoeba and their cool casual staff thinking you're lame for buying the best of bread, which I'm not. There was a place
buying it for a friend.
There was a place just down the street doing it years earlier, but in suits, at a place called Wallichs Music City. It all started in the heartland of Music Land, USA, Nebraska. This week on Midwest Meekly, Nebraska. It was Grand Island, Nebraska. That's where this all starts. Again, did not start in Los Angeles, but he's about to get some serious
sun.
Yeah. This is where Glenn Everett Wallichs.
Okay.
He was born August 9th, 1910. As a kid in Nebraska, he had to make his own fun, so he dove headfirst into the only thing people in Nebraska know how to do to have fun, tinkering with electronics. early electronic.
That's how you rebelled? Stop trying to hook a battery up to that pig.
What's a battery? What's the matter? Blood doesn't work for you anymore? You need electricity? That thing that young kid, Benjamin Franklin, is working with?
The guy who invented kites and keys?
This, coupled with his love of music, naturally led him to become fascinated with radios. radios. So listening to them and sticking his grimy little kid fingers into their electronic guts, that's what he loved doing. No more pigs. He's not sticking his hands in pigs anymore.
Because people kept asking questions, and they're like, you're a serial killer. And he's like, oh,
no,
is that what that is?
I kill radios.
They kill radios, don't they?
Those radios, the ones that oink and the ones that say, please, I'm your sister. He was so into this that when he was 10, he built a radio small enough to fit into a thimble.
Whoa,
which
really?
was the most interesting thing to ever happen in Nebraska at the time, and still ever. So much so,
for sure, a spy.
So much so that this thimble radio, which I think is what the FBI was spying on me with, whenever I put my thimble on to do some knitting,
whenever I put my silver cap teeth on,
whenever I played Monopoly, I could hear Woodrow Wilson trying to communicate with me. And my neighbors are crazy. This was so exciting that the thimble radio was taken all the way to Omaha to be put on display in a department store.
Whoa,
and
okay.
this is like, come see the thimble.
I would, you're making fun. I would go see it.
I'd go see if I was in Omaha.
In 1915 or whatever.
Yeah. 1920. Actually, this was 100 years ago. This is the 100th anniversary of the thimble radio. Why isn't this on a stamp?
Yeah. Why don't we have thimbles as stamps, guys? Come on. It's 2020. Come on.
We've come so far as a society. Why not thimbles? So they took it all the way to Omaha to be put on display in a department store, and then the thimble was elected mayor. But the glory of the thimble radio had to come to an end in 1926 when his mother became sick, and the only remedy was that clean, pure air and sunshine of Los Angeles,
that old
California. And it's clean again 100 years later, still just as fresh.
Just don't breathe it all at once, just like a little bit each day.
There's also not much left after those fires in Australia. I knew all about it. I was kidding.
I wasn't getting news from you. You're a stupid person. Why would I ever get news from you?
I knew that. So at age 16, Glenn was now living in North Hollywood. He went to North Hollywood High School, and then he went to Franklin High School after that. But in his free time, he just couldn't stay away from his true passion, radios, thimbles.
Thimbles. Radios is old news. Thimbles? Yeah. That's a hot new thing.
Who wants to play with a Nintendo Switch when I have a thimble? He had outgrown thimbles, so now he was interested in building radios and bigger things. I want to put maybe a radio in a glove.
Yeah. Or a globe.
A small globe, the size of a thimble. What he wanted to do was maybe I'll put a radio inside of a car. And keep in mind, this is the late 20s. So in the late 20s,
they were barely cars.
They were basically thimbles. In the thimbles with wheels. In the late 20s, he successfully installed radios into Model T cars.
Are you serious?
And the first commercial radio wasn't sold to the public until 1930, so he seems to have made the first ever car radio in North Hollywood, according to him at least, but it seems like that was the case.
In that burning junkyard, North Hollywood.
It wasn't burning yet. It was just a junkyard.
It was a regular trash junkyard.
The Nebraska of Los Angeles. But that's insane that first of all, that there was a radio, like someone's driving in a Model T.
I think something's wrong with your engine, buddy. I can hear Glenn Miller coming out of it.
Your engine sounds a lot like Al Bowley. No, I'm listening to the newest tunes.
I'm dancing and driving. I don't know if that's a crime, but I'm going to have to beat you with a stick for a while, son. You lost your marbles.
Who are you, the Great Gatsby?
Which I'm halfway through reading. Just published yesterday.
Which just came out. Don't tell me how it ends.
Don't tell me what this green eye monster is.
Don't tell me what that scary green monster is out on the other side of the Montauk docks. How does this end for the world? So when he graduated high school, he enrolled at City College, which I guess that's LACC?
Yeah, maybe.
I think that becomes that. I don't know.
Yeah.
LA City College.
Yeah.
They just added LA to the front. Right?
Yeah, they do.
Right? Am I right?
Am I right?
Let me get my brown noise. It drowns out the humor.
Must be brown noise all the time.
Maybe you should get a little closer to your microphone. So that
no one heard that ripping insult that you gave me.
So City College, whatever that may be. But he quickly ran out of money and he dropped out. So instead he spent the Depression installing car radios, selling regular radios, and delivering the Hollywood News newspaper around the valley. So he was
to people who couldn't afford it. Yeah,
exactly. I can only pay for the classified section. But his car radio caught the eye of a producer at KFWB. News 98.
News 98.
So he hired him to
You give us 15 minutes, we'll give you a big radio.
We'll give you a job. So he hired him to install one in his car. So this producer said, I want one. Put one in my Model T. And he was so impressed with his handiwork that he hired him as a studio technician at the KFWB studio. So he spent a year there until he got a new job at a radio store at 5th and Broadway called J.J. Newberry Dynamite. But in 1932...
He also had to make dynamite. That's what I'm trying to get at.
But in 1932, the store burned down. Dynamite. So now he, like the rest of the country, was jobless.
Yeah.
So he created his own job and rented a space at 1637 North Ivar in Hollywood that he called Hollywood Radio, where he made and sold radios for the home and for your car.
It's pretty good business.
I keep thinking, like, you were doing this during the Depression. Like, who was buying like a radio cost like $4 million during the Depression?
Did. Like, you're going to have to leave a couple of your kids here. Yeah. Workers, and you can take a radio.
And I can put radios in them if you want. But if you
Sally,
want
open your mouth. Close your mouth.
Wait a minute. I want to hear that commercial. KFWB. So this shop was successful enough that he was able to open 5 more locations. So I guess people wanted radios during the Depression.
They want to hear how sad they should be. How many shoes should I eat today?
But remember that radios was only half of his obsession. The other half was music.
Right.
So this led to his desire to start adding little recording studios in some of his shops for people to cut their own records. So slowly his recording booth started getting popular. So he teamed up with a guy named Al Jarvis, who he knew from his KFWB days. And also this guy owned a record store near one of Wallichs' shops. So they combined forces and they made a place called Hollywood House of Music. Everything is Hollywood with this guy, which was a record store where you could also record records.
You can buy a record, but you also can walk in and make your own record.
So you create the inventory.
I'm looking for something I made already.
Do you have the newest me? Jarvis also broadcast a radio program from here called Make Believe Ballroom. This was also the location where a novelty song called The World's Worst Record was recorded, which features Wallichs himself playing on it.
I gotta hear it.
Yeah.
Is it Come stop me, please. I don't know where you live.
Read the Great Gatsby. Read the Great Gatsby. Gilded Age, Thimble. However, the location of Wallichs' flagship's radio store was going through the natural life cycle of anything in Los Angeles and was about to be raised to make way for a parking lot. So he needed a new location.
Okay.
And there was like 6 cars.
God, this has been a problem for so long.
We've got 10 cars. We need to park. Everything needs to be a parking lot.
Cars are a thing because people keep putting radios in them.
They need to park their radios somewhere.
They're mobile radios.
A Model T was barely a car. It was probably more. Yeah, it probably was more radio than car.
Yeah, for sure.
He's more radio than car now. I got to see Star Wars. So luckily there was a large space available at the corner of Sunset and Vine. But to afford it, he would have to sell all his other locations. But he figured, hey, you only open up a record store multiple times in your life. So he did. And in July 1940, Glenn Wallichs Music City was opened.
Okay, at Sunset and Vine.
Sunset and Vine. Picture it. Almost.
That guy who kept saying Dagger. It's funny when you say Sunset and Vine, I could think Wallichs, but I could also think that's where the Yankee Bandit was caught at that bank on the corner. And I'm like, oh, history is weird.
Yeah. History is repetitive, like a skipping record. It was a giant radio store, record store, and amateur recording studio combo. So it was basically a third records, third electronics, third musical instruments. So this way it was a musicians and music lovers paradise.
It sounded like a superstore before they understood what a superstore could be.
Yeah, on NBC.
On NBC, yeah.
It was like everything you need. Like you could buy concert tickets. Like if you wanted music, you went to Wallichs. Okay. That's where you needed to go.
Anything music related.
Anything music related. It was the place to go in town for anything music related. It's where you go when you want anything music related.
You need a mariachi band play for your birthday party?
Get the hell out.
We don't know what that is. Get out.
Go to Ciudad de Musico. Aside from being an important place to that community, the music community in town, they also did something that revolutionized record stores around the world. So the way record stores used to work was that you'd walk in and all the records would be behind a counter that you could look at from your lowly position on the other side of the counter, and then you could buy one from a clerk and he'd give you the record. You'd be like,
a prescription.
Yeah,
like
could I get
records?
Could I get 4 Benny Goodmans?
I'll take a couple
we've exhausted our musicians from the 20s that we might be aware of. Do you have any Robert Johnson? Who's that? Wrong decade.
Yeah.
You caught me. I'm a time traveler.
I'm Bill from Bill and Ted.
Dynamite.
Party on. I know we're both wrong. I have no idea what they say.
So that's how it would work. Wallichs decided that in his store, he was going to have the records displayed out in the store for the customers to come and touch and flip through and look at the artwork and the album tracks. But doing this would open himself to people sliding the records out of the sleeves and down their pants and walking out of the store.
Yeah, because everyone had balloon pants.
Yeah, it was the 20s, obviously.
Obviously.
It's been 100 years. We've lost touch with history, but I'm pretty sure they were all wearing parachute pants in the 20s.
Yeah, no parachute pants or togos, one of the two. I don't really know history.
Togos?
Togas, oh my God.
They were wearing sandwich. I mean, they would all eat at Togos, obviously. In their parachute pants. So to anticipate this thievery, he came up with his second incredible innovation. He was going to wrap all his records in cellophane.
Okay.
So like wrapped records.
He invented wrap records.
This was the first store to ever do that, to have plastic wrap around a record and to have it out for the public to see.
So you can sift through
a
bunch of records.
But here's the thing. The innovating didn't end there, because now instead of just having here's a stack of records on the table, he needed a way to display them in an appealing way. So he put those tabletop display boxes that you can see that are in every record store now. Yeah, the ones that you could just you could flip through them like cards and see He created all that. He invented the modern record store, which is crazy. Yeah. So that's 3 huge things already that made this store not only a serious store that probably had any album you were looking for, but also one with a unique shopping experience where you felt involved, which created a communal atmosphere that people wanted to hang out and spend time in rather than just point to to a record and leave. So this was it was a hot spot. Like,
Yeah.
this is where music people came.
Like a hangout spot.
Exactly.
Yeah.
On top of all that, they also had those recording booths. So you had not just music fans, but actual musicians were coming in and out of here as well. So among the countless nobodies, there was Stan Kenton's orchestra made their first recording
Really?
in Wallichs Music City. But just having this record store wasn't enough for Wallichs. This is what you were getting to. He wanted to go even higher up the food chain because what was happening was the record industry at the time was dominated by East Coast record labels. So what that meant was that for a place like Wallichs was that the record companies all being on the East Coast meant that they were giving most of their inventory to the local record stores on the East Coast because it was cheaper and easier. And as a result, the poor old West Coast Wallichs Music City was often not getting new albums from companies like RCA and Decca and Columbia because they didn't trickle that far west. It just wasn't worth it to them. So Wallichs got in his head, I'm going to make my own record company on the West Coast. So luckily he had a friend who was in a similar situation to his. That friend was Johnny Mercer.
Oh, wow.
The guy who wrote Moon River and sang Hooray for Hollywood. So Wallichs knew Mercer because Mercer's wife hired Wallichs a while back to put a car radio in his car. So
He's gotten 2 jobs from
I know,
the
he
car
probably put his
radios.
business card in. What's
It
this?
seems to be a problem. I better take it out. A business card where a screw should be.
It's only on one station that's just saying hire me.
Audio resume.
So she put it in for his birthday. The two got to talking. They became friends. At the same time, Wallichs was having trouble with the record companies. Mercer was also annoyed because he was sick of his songs not being recorded properly by the record companies. Wallichs shared with Mercer his vision for starting a big record label on the West Coast, and Mercer was fully on board, and the two brought in songwriter Buddy DeSilva, and on June 4th, 1942, they officially opened their new record label, Capitol Records.
That's right.
The word capital reflecting their Hollywood location as the entertainment capital
Right.
of the world. So Wallichs himself even came up those 4 stars on their logo. That was Wallich.
Okay.
It was, 1942 military time in America. So the 4 stars signified a 4-star general sort of authority. Like, this is the top record company. What did I just say? Militaristic time in America says? What am I talking about? World War I, II was happening. Bad time in history to start a record company because you needed shellac to make bullets, and shellac also was needed to make records, and all the shellac in the world was being used to kill people. So Wallichs came up with this genius plan. However, that may also have been a minor act of treason. Since there was no new shellac, he bought 500 pounds of old records and ground them up and turned them into new shellac to not help with the war effort, but to make those funky licorice pizzas that we all love. It worked, and within 2 years, Capitol was a multi-million-dollar company. And all this was happening in the original Capitol Records office, which were upstairs above Wallichs Music City. The Capitol Records building, not there. It was built until 1956. For 14 years, they were on the second story of Wallichs Music City. Wallichs hated the design for Capitol Records building, by the way. He called it a cheap gimmick. But he was adamant about the quality of the recording studios in there, which are world-renowned studios because of Wallichs pushing, like, it has to be a good thing. Wallichs eventually became president of Capitol, and even though he wasn't as high profile as Johnny Mercer or Buddy DeSilva, he was considered the founder of Capitol Records because he was running the business end and he made this all happen. And DeSilva, he left Capitol in 1947. Mercer cashed out in 1950, but Wallichs was involved in one way or another in Capitol Records for the rest of his life. Meanwhile, he was too busy with the record company to focus on the record store. So in 1949, controlling interest was bought by a different Wallichs, Clyde Wallichs, his 7-year younger brother.
Oh, okay. That is so funny. What's Wallichs' first name is Glenn?
The goober of
like, you could tell by their first names, like, oh, I don't trust Clyde. Glenn Everett? Good guy.
No, you can trust my brother.
Clyde. Like Bonnie and Clyde? Clyde.
No, Clyde. I don't know who they are. I'm Clyde. By the way, it's time for Bonnie and Clyde to make a comeback. It's the 20s again.
Are there even banks to rob anymore? Did millennials kill that too?
Are they going to rob my Bitcoin mine? So Clyde took what his brother created and all that innovation, that goodwill and the scene that he had nurtured, and didn't do the typical thing a younger brother would did and punch his older sibling in the nose with it and ruin it. Yeah. Instead, he made things even better. Clyde was a good brother.
Whoa,
Clyde,
surprise.
Country boy does good. So Clyde...
oh boy. Ooh.
Where's that brown noise machine? He kept the spirit of the store going, and he even added yet another revolutionary innovation in the record store world, private listening booths. This was what Clyde added to Wallichs Music City, which was the first place to have private listening booths. Yeah. So now you could take a demo record and go into one of their 21 soundproof booths and listen to the album before you bought it.
And weren't they on the sidewalk? not on the sidewalk, but people on the sidewalk could see you because the listening booths were on the other
Maybe.
side of the
I don't
wall.
know.
I think I remember hearing that.
I think you're probably wrong.
I might have made that up. I might have saw that in Empire Records, which is
think
what I
you're
covered
thinking of-
today.
I think you're thinking of...
The radio stations?
Why can't I think of the name of that movie? Do the Right Thing. I've almost called it Once Upon a Time During the Summer.
Just as good of a title,
So that's not a bad title.
Yeah.
I'll add it to the Once Upon a Time oeuvre. Like I said, this was the first store in the world to offer that, and that only made their reputation as a hangout spot even stronger.
Yeah.
And another thing he contributed was that he would print out a weekly hit chart that they would post to show people
kidding
what
me.
the most popular albums they were selling were and to offer suggestions to them in the store. They billed this as the West's only authentic popular record and album hit list.
Don't tell me they also invented the charts.
No, they didn't. They didn't invent the charts. They invented in-store charts.
Okay.
It was just that. Speaking
Like
of
staff
marketing
picks,
gimmick,
yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't invent
Yeah,
staff
I
pick.
know.
This was just something that was like, it's a fun thing. Like you
Yeah.
could go in and be like, oh, that looks good. That looks good. I'm gonna go sit in this booth for 4 hours and listen to it.
does
I'm
that
gonna
mean that
download
he-
this onto my car radio.
I'm going to download this into my oven.
The original iPod.
Does that mean that he took away the cellophane from the record wrapping if you were going to listen to it?
I think what would happen was you could be like, I think they had demo records, but if they didn't
Oh.
have one, you could be like, hey, can I listen to this? And they'll unwrap it, and that will become the demo, and then just
you
buy a
put-
fresh one.
okay.
Or maybe they'll make you buy that one.
Out of the
You
oven.
listen to it, you buy it.
Yeah.
That was the little known policy.
If you remember the tune, then you have to buy it.
I saw you in there bobbing your head. I think you owe us money.
We counted per bob.
So this was just a fun place to be. And since the offices of Capitol Records were right upstairs, there were mega star musicians going in and out of here all the time and browsing the store
I
after
am
their
Nat
meetings.
King Cole. Where's the bathroom?
It's funny that you bring that up. On any given day, you would see Nat King Cole.
God.
You would see Bing Crosby, Perry Como, Dean Martin, Fred Astaire, Judy Garland. Elvis would be going in and out of this.
That's-
I heard he left the building once.
we had to close after that.
Elvis has left the building. We can finally close.
He would not go.
Well, he certainly did in his last day on Earth. Boy, did he go. Oh,
I wonder how many songs were written about being in Wallichs that are veiled.
it's
Okay.
coming up. A lot of them would sign their albums that were on display.
Oh,
like,
cool.
Yeah.
While waiting for the bathroom.
Can you sign the toilet seat? Like, sick ass foo did?
Your mama did.
It's like, I wish this were my face did? Clyde even got several of them to do radio jingles for the store.
Whoa.
And like Nat King Cole was doing radio jingles for the record store. They also plastered the city with newspaper ads. Come to Wallichs Music City. Radio shows will be broadcast from here. A band named The Pleasures made a song about the store called Music City. And I listened to it, and it has a similar beat to
Surf City?
they all did. A similar like melody to a much more famous song. And I was like, oh my God. And then I realized, wait, no, they're not saying any of the same lyrics.
This isn't Come Together from the Beatles.
Oh, it's just Norwegian wood. Yeah, Norwegian wood is actually about this store. Norwegian wood is a metaphor for Elvis's shopping habits. In their prime, they were not only the biggest record store in LA, they were the biggest record store on the West Coast and the biggest specialty record store in the world.
Yeah.
Wallichs Music City. You're going to love this. In the 50s, they began expanding with locations in Lakewood, downtown LA. In 1963, they had a big expansion with new locations in West Covina, Buena Park, Woodland Hills, and Torrance. The Torrance one was on the northeast corner of Hawthorne and Artesia with a groundbreaking presided over by Robert Goulet. And they're worth mentioning just for their opening ceremony. It took place on November 16th, which is a great day for anniversaries, 1963, in the parking lot of what is now the South Bay Galleria. So they had this giant concert. It was emceed by Bob Crane. And,
Oh my God.
And listen from Hogan's Heroes.
Oh, the pervert?
So listen to the lineup they had. Jan and Dean, Rose Marie,
Oh, really?
Dick Dale, the Ventures, the Righteous Brothers, the Surfaris, and the Beach Boys were
You're
all playing the
kidding
same
me.
concert for the opening of this record store. It's insane.
That's one of the best lineups I've heard.
If
They
that
all
was
played the
Woodstock, I'd be
same song.
interested. Yeah. This is
We
our
surfed
version
the-
of fun.
We surfed the torrents. That's so funny. We just saw them. No, this is Jan and Dean. You saw the Beach Boys. Oh, I just saw Dick Dale. No, actually, you're thinking of
Which one of
Gene
you
Vincent.
sings the one about the little old lady from Pasadena?
And they
All
both,
of us.
They all both raised their hand.
I am Jan and Dean. Eventually, they opened up a couple locations in Arizona. There were 11 locations total that they had.
Wallichs Music.
Wallichs Music City. Back at the Sunset and Vine location, the mid-60s took them to a whole new level because the Hollywood Palladium was right there.
Oh,
So
yeah.
now all the hip new bands that were coming to town were now drawing even more people to the area because they were playing at the Hollywood Palladium. And Wallichs would stay open until 2 a.m. to accommodate this scene. So, and everybody would shop there. Now, instead of Elvis and Fred Astaire,
Awful, dirty hippie bands.
it was the Mamas and the Papas, Rock Hudson, my favorite band.
Yeah, Rock Hudson.
The Rolling Stones, Red Skelton would be there, my favorite musician again. Herb Alpert and Phil Spector would go in there to see how well their albums were selling.
It's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
You assume that Phil Spector is around, and then you say his name. He's like, oh, you know, he was on Sunset Divide. And I go, ugh. He was only like 3/4 crazy. He only pulled a gun on how many of the Ronettes?
His listening booth was also bulletproof. Frank Zappa worked there in 1965.
Pretty cool.
It's weird. Unfortunately, as we'll know well by the end of this episode, no record store can ever possibly last. As Madman taught us, what was sharp and cool in the 60s was just dated and lecherous by the 70s, and they invented Coca-Cola.
And in the end, they invented Coca-Cola.
All the workers at Wallichs since the store's creation wore jackets and ties, even into the 70s. And compare that to how kids were dressing a little further west down Sunset Boulevard.
My dress is made of granola.
Yeah. I know that we love this country and all nature, but this is made out of the last buffalo. Wallichs wasn't really a rock and roll kind of place, and it just started feeling old and lame. And around this time, so teenagers weren't hanging out there anymore. Like it wasn't cool to be at Wallichs. Like that's where my dad goes. Like I'm not interested.
I don't want to hear Herb Alpert.
And Herb Alpert heard you say that because he speaks out of. He is a trombone. Don't say that in front of Phil Spector. On top of that, the store had a ton of stereo consoles in their inventory, but by the 70s, people were buying new component audio systems, which were smaller. So think a record player and a speaker versus a giant wooden credenza that's like made out of a full redwood tree that you would listen to music out of. It was too big and expensive, so people weren't buying their audio equipment. So now they had a ton of expensive merchandise that wasn't moving. Yeah. We know a lot about that, but certainly people still wanted records, but not from lame-ass Don Draper's store, and especially not when they could get their records for $3 cheaper at the discount mega stores that were now in existence. So this lack of revenue led to the listening booths being too expensive to maintain, so they stopped those, and now the little charm that the store had left was gone. It's just an expensive record store now that sold records you didn't
really...
For my dad. Your dad. Hey, not my dad. I didn't vote for him. In 1976, they had a last-ditch gambit to get hip by lowering prices and no more jackets and ties.
Thomas, I'm going to need you to wear some Manson clothes.
I'm going to need you to join the Manson family.
Grow that beard, son. Don't wash your hair.
Do you have your draft card? Rip it up. This didn't work. It was not cool. They were $1.6 million in debt, and they declared bankruptcy in March 1977, and by January 1978, they were closed. That building was used as the set of the Merv Griffin show for a little bit after they closed, but they were eventually raised. It's now a Walgreens. As for the Wallichs, it's not even a charming Walgreens. As for the Wallichs themselves, Glenn died December 23, 1971. He's buried at Forest Lawn, Hollywood Hills. Clyde died December 31st, 1997, Forest Lawn, Glendale. But the spirit of music didn't die in that part of town, as we'll soon get to. Spoiler alert, it's about to die all over again.
So many things you brought up were like, ooh, that is happening right now, isn't it?
The same things keep happening to a different soundtrack.
Well, we're going to pick up in a... Wait. My name's Clyde, and we're going to talk a little bit about the way that ends leads perfectly into mine, but we're going to talk about my boyhood record store.
Okay. Boyhood Records.
2395 Glendale Boulevard, Rockaway Records. Have you been there before?
No.
I've never dragged you there before.
Is it still there?
It's still there.
Okay, no.
Spoiler alert, it's still there. Rockaway Records was a product of two brothers, Gary and Wayne.
Clyde and Glenn Rockaway.
Gary and Wayne Johnson, who began Sound Records in the late 70s after being regulars at the legendary Capitol Records parking lot record swap meets, which we talked about in the Obvious Landmarks episode when we covered Capitol. It was where skinny thugs and junkies and weirdos would meet, and they would later form punk bands like the Skinny Thugs, the Junkies, and the Weirdos. Only one of those bands is a real punk band. Wayne and Gary had collected records as a hobby for some time, going to any garage sale or yard sale or swap meet and leaving.
What, they didn't shop at Wallichs? They're part of the problem. Punks.
Out there, shaking hands with weird people who have trunks open.
Pretending nails are earrings.
Yeah, they'd go to any place that was selling records, and they would leave with a crate of anything, records or anything music related. Wayne was an electronic technician at this point, and he was noticing that his brother and his little hobby in quotes, of collecting records was becoming like a full second job. They then decided to switch it up and start selling their wares at the Capitol Records swap meet. And from that point on, they knew what they wanted to do.
The student has become the master of Star Wars. I got to see it.
But I got to go right now. What do you think's happening right now?
What do you think Ray's doing?
You think BB-8's being cute right now?
I think Baby Yoda's in this one? He's still alive.
I would die for Baby Yoda. Anyways, so they wanted to open up a shop of their own. The brothers knew they were destined for this job because they had a knack for finding not only hard to find...
For finding the knack.
They had a knack for finding not only hard to find records, but gems they refer to as...
Gems and the holograms.
They were good at finding Beatles under their car.
They were certainly no Rolling Stone.
Okay, they were good at finding hard to find albums. There's probably a better way to say that. I don't know how to say it. They also could find...
cancel double negative. They were good at albums.
They were really lucky when it came to what they call records no one would play, which which were like rare collectibles. Like in their collection, they had a rare mint Beatles 45 that cost $8,000. They scored at a swap meet.
That's the dream. The ultimate dream is on the B side. It's a recording of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. That's the dream.
And they like one of the words is misspelled on there. Independence is spelled wrong, so then it's like it's like more collectible.
And then they say, "Oh, sorry for screwing this one up. We'll tape this baseball card of that one guy from Pittsburgh on this, and we'll mail it to you with that upside down plane stamp. I hope that's not a problem. Sincerely, Joan of Arc."
Okay, so they would buy these things with no intention of listening to it, like the Beatles record. They just wanted to collect it. Their lives became buying, selling, and hoarding records.
When was this?
Late 70s, early 80s. Their lives became buying and selling and hoarding records to the point where the house in Brea they lived in was more of like a record storage facility with beds. Their records took up the whole house, records in the bedroom, records in the kitchens, records in the closet. But one day they'll be brave enough and trusting enough to come out.
I'm sorry, I stepped on that. What I had to say is records for supper time.
I'm glad that you got that one.
I got messed up. I'm messed up.
I'm all messed up. All that brown noise in my brain. From here, they began a mail order business. Pre-internet mail order business. It baffles me. From here, they began a mail order business from their own and hired their very first employee. So things were becoming real and the operation was moving along. But then they realized they needed a retail space that they also didn't live in.
What's the problem?
I don't understand. Chinese restaurants do it all the time. What's upstairs? Oh, I see a bed up there. Oh, you woke somebody up to serve me water? Talk about food chow, because man, that guy did not want to serve me water that time.
Oh, come on. Food upstairs and food chow is where the Chinese gangs hang out. That obviously, and Jackie Chan took him down. Go upstairs and it's a beautiful banquet hall.
It's a penthouse plaza. It's a presidential suite up there.
And you look out the window and you see the Manhattan skyline. Welcome to Food Chow. I hate that place.
In 1982, the two brothers then purchased what was described as a hole-in-the-wall record store owned by Marty Levy called Rainbow Records, which was on Glendale Boulevard closer to Fletcher between Save-On and KFC, which means it was probably next to my childhood barbershop, Tony's, which is somebody tried to bribe him with $1 to leave line for a second to go get some more cash, and he burned the dollar.
What?
Yeah, because you don't bribe Tony. This was my boyhood plaza, the one that's on Fletcher and Glendale Boulevard. That's now completely gentrified and has a Whole Foods there. My barbershop was there, 2020 Video, Baskin Robbins, Round Table.
Nobody gentrifies Tony.
Tony.
He burned his business down.
He's probably dead now. He's super old. He was super old when I was a kid.
Nobody kills Tony. He burns himself.
So the way it was described in LA Times, Rainbow Records, the way it was described in the LA Times, make it sound like a real hippy-dippy dirtbag shop. In their words, Marty hung out in tie-dye shirts, grooved on loud music, made friends with customers young and old, and altogether presented an endearing model for an unrepentant flower child with a receding hairline who could work the system.
And another thing, he's bald.
Shut this place down.
Not like us from the greatest generation. Hair for miles.
All the recordings are just presidential speeches.
Come down to Wallichs, where you can listen to Nixon's resignation.
God bless you, sir. The brothers bought Rainbow from Levy, and from that original spot opened Rockaway Records, but kept Levy around as a manager and the jazz expert of the new store. Gary came up with a name for Rockaway Records, and much to my pleasure, it was named after my favorite Ramones, one of my favorite Ramones song, Rockaway Beach, which is funny because, okay,
Blitzkrieg Bop.
It was named I Don't Want to Go in the Basement. Anyways, I Want to Be Your Boyfriend.
Talking about songs that are all the same. You put down the Safaris one more time?
I didn't put down the Safaris. I put down everybody but the Safaris, although they are the Ventures.
You put down all the rest of them. You put down all of them because they're the same band.
The Safaris are Clark Kent. The Ventures are Superman. They're the same people, just at night.
No, he's holding his guitar on the left hand. It can't be the same person. His guitar has glasses on.
I like that Dick Dale sounds the same as an entire band of guitar players. What's funny about them calling it Rockaway Beach and naming it after a Ramones song is that from reading articles about Rockaway Records, there's a real obvious preference for the Beach Boys at Rockaway Records, and I've always said that Rockaway Beach was a great Beach Boys song, except it was written and performed by the Ramones.
They pretty much are the quote-unquote punk.
They're the East Coast Ramones.
Yeah. No, East Coast Beach Boys.
West Coast Ramones are the Beach Boys.
Rockaway Beach, not far from where The Great Gatsby took place, by the way. Welcome to the 20s.
We made it, guys.
We're all moving to the Hamptons. Meet me in Montauk.
You're now quoting Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Yeah, well, it's a metaphor.
Wayne's office is apparently lined with Beach Boys memorabilia, and when they asked in the Silver Lake blog, which a musician he grew up idolizing, it was, of course, Brian Wilson, who went crazy. Who was still a little bit crazy.
Who lost his mind with adoration.
Thank you so much for admiring me. I'm going to go into the sandbox in my home that has a piano, and I'm going to not eat for 5 days.
And I'm going to ignore Mama Cass. Yeah.
I'm going to obsessively tap this wall to see the sound it makes for 4 days. The first year of the original location was great.
Meet me in Montauk.
Meet me in Montauk. Meet me in Montauk. Meet me In Montauk, 6 days of that. The first year of the original location was great. So great, in fact, that they were beginning to outgrow that space. They then moved to a former laundromat a few spaces down in the shopping plaza, but not long after that, they lost a lease on that space. So Rockaway was looking for a new home, and the Johnson brothers wanted to and could purchase the space, which is not how you know it's not a story written in 2019. It's because someone bought the property.
People could afford to buy anything.
Right.
You mean it wasn't a Russian oligarch?
It wasn't a Chinese syndicate.
Wait, it was only
Bought a
two
skyscraper?
brothers? It was Johnson & Johnson, right?
So there were spots open that they could buy. One of them was on Melrose and the other one was on Ventura, but they were like, those are too expensive, and the brothers didn't want to commute. After some time, the Johnsons landed a spot of a former Latino nightclub called the Cache, which had closed down, which had been a sore subject of the Silver Lake neighbors who hated the late night noise and commotion that the Cache brought to the neighborhood. You could relate to that. You are the neighbors.
You know what they should have gotten is a giant brown noise machine.
God forbid people who like that club enjoy themselves.
Well, God forbid I go to bed for one night. You're a sympathizer.
I want to go to bed.
This is the 20s all over again.
So I think they bought Cache and a store or restaurant that was right next door and were able to create a large, with the two spaces, a large and new permanent home for Rockaway in 1992, 10 years after opening the original location. So now they are at their new spot where they are now.
Did they close the original one?
Yeah, the original
Okay.
closed down. Now it's probably a hipster bakery. Rockaway Records is a great little record shop that growing up had plenty of vinyl and new and used cassettes, and later had compact discs, new and used, along with used books, which I always found something great at Rockaway. But it seems their main emphasis has always been collectibles. A piece of memorabilia that keeps being brought up in articles is a signed copy from 1964 of the original first album from the Beatles, Please Please Me, which sits in a glass case. That gem there.
Yeah, how much is that worth? And how well guarded is it?
And what is the kind of security system do they have? That record goes for $28,500.
That's it? I feel like it would be more. It's signed by all the Beatles?
No.
Oh. Didn't you say it was signed? Signed by Pete Best.
This was when George Harrison was probably still alive. Every time a Beatle dies, everything goes up in value.
Every time a Beatle dies, an angel gets its wings. Well, yeah, I mean, Paul McCartney got his wings after the Beatles died.
Rockaway also has an original copy of the Beatles Yesterday and Today from 1965, and it's signed by 3 members of the Beatles that weren't shot, although one of them was stabbed. Wayne said that if it had the 4th signature, you can add a 0 to that price tag, which ran at $12,000, which again is pretty, I don't say it's affordable. I'll never have $12,000 in my life. So there's a stereo
Wait
copy.
till more shirts are available.
I don't even get a shirt.
You can't afford it. The next batch is going to cost $30,000 each.
Signed by both the Meekley boys, the one that didn't get shot.
The one that'll still be alive in February.
There's a stereo copy of Free Willy and Bob Dylan, which has 4 songs not released on later copies. There's only 3 of these in the world, and one sold for $40,000. Rockaway has one of those. One Christmas, my mom got me a very nice poster of the Sex Pistols from Rockaway, which I would have paid money to just to see her and go in and ask for it. Altogether,
I'm here for sex.
Pistols. Altogether, the Johnson brothers spent $600,000 on a collection of 100,000 albums from a collector in Hollywood, which Wayne said was their biggest purchase. After word traveled around about this deal, other collectors wanting to unload their collectibles came to Rockaway. People who deal with Rockaway knew the Johnsons to pay fairly, and they knew whatever they sold to them would be safe. It wouldn't be just like thrown in the trash. Cheap used CDs and collectibles is what helped keep Rockaway afloat when so many other music stores, big and small, began to get swallowed up by your Napsters, your LimeWires, your SoulSeeks.
I keep forgetting the name of the program I used, and I think you used too. It was like a knockoff of Napster, because I didn't use Napster.
You
I
did.
didn't use anything. I mean, the FBI is still
They're
listening
still
to
investigating that,
listening
yeah.
to my hair gel. What was the one that was? Can't remember. If you
yeah.
remember, write to us.
Yeah, write the songs you downloaded.
And give us your IPN and the dates and times that it happened, and write to us directly at confession@fbi.gov.
So of course, early 2000s, everything starts to change because we could just download whatever album/virus that we wanted to. So music stores started to really change at that point. They stopped selling new CDs some years ago when the big stores started to downgrade their CD sections. Little shops couldn't compare, so they doubled down on used CDs, which seemed to like no one thought was a good business model. But Amoeba and Rockaway survived because of this. Which yeah, Amoeba scared the hell out of Rockaway when they opened because Rhino and Aaron's couldn't compete, but Rockaway managed. And like Amoeba, when the dust settled from the music stores closing, Rockaway benefited. They like at some point bought a whole collection from a store in Iowa that had to shut down. They bought like 75,000 CDs from this little shop. They like have such a good name in collecting fields. But still, streaming music has done another number on the remaining record stores. And according to the Nielsen Sound Scan, which tracks music sales, little independent shops like Amoeba and Rockaway only account for like 7% of all album sales, which is half of what it was in 2001.
Seems high.
Now Spotify, iTunes, and Amazon take another blow, a huge blow from small shops, as well as giant stores like Target and Walmart from their meager CD section, which I imagine only sells like Katy Perry and Paul McCartney.
Who
buys a CD from Target?
A desperate grandma on Christmas Eve.
My grandson likes Christmas music.
I'll get him Barry Manilow Christmas.
Yeah.
Stupid grandma.
Stop buying me stuff from Walmart. Grandma, you can buy me whatever you want. Anytime I accept it. Independent record shops, like we said, Amoeba, not only offer hard-to-find music that not even Spotify or iTunes has, but there's a communal experience. There's something about being at a Rockaway.
It's almost the same way of like how libraries are kind of going.
Yeah.
Where like, books and stuff, but like we're leaning towards communities.
Communities, community
a
centers.
Well, we'll get into it, but like Amoeba is like, you can go see this band. Well, not anymore. Pretty soon, not anymore, but you got to be a scene.
Yeah. Yeah,
You've
exactly.
gotta
And
be a
Rockaway
scene.
is a scene for collectors. Like it became a place where like hardcore music fans went, not just like people who want to be seen.
Not just your grandma trying to find Barry Manilow Christmas.
or trying to find like a Rolling Stones album, and all I have is like a Rolling Stones cover from a tribute album.
Yeah, Sam
Just
Smith
Green
tribute
Day
album.
did, yeah.
Sam Smith parody band. That's what they're selling at Target.
A box set of Katy Perry. According to LA Times article from 10 years ago about Rockaway, altogether they had at that time 75,000 CDs, 20,000 LPs, 20,000 45s, and 10,000 DVDs, along with thousands of vintage magazines, books, posters, and other pieces of memorabilia. They've also managed to stay in business by becoming landlords and renting some of the spaces on that spot where they had.
How do they feel about loud music late at night? They're not going to help you. These landlords aren't going to do anything.
They're not going to do anything for you. If anything, they're going to be in cahoots, shadow people. That whole plaza there is now called Rockaway Plaza. And they rented portions of what used to be the Rockaway to like a yoga studio and a computer repair shop. I think there's also like a wine spot right behind them. Rockaway Records now only occupies 35% of its original building, but they're still holding strong. I haven't been there in some time, but yeah, Rockaway was for sure
part of the problem.
I don't listen to music anymore.
I can't afford it.
I can't afford it, okay? I just hum tunes
I
that
read sheet
remember.
music from the library, which is also leaving.
If there's a movie I'm watching and it has music, that's the only music I'm listening to.
It's like people who could only get their news from the newsreels before seeing a movie. I gotta find out how World War I ended.
I gotta buy a ticket to the Shadow of the Thin Man so I could figure out what's happening in the trench, even though that's 20 years ago. I don't understand history.
I gotta see who shot Tupac. I gotta go see the cabinet of Dr. Caligari.
I haven't been there in like some years, but Rockaway was for sure the first record shop that I loved. My mom would take me to kill time and pick up CDs or tapes. My uncle and brother, we would treat ourselves and just during summer vacation would just stop at Rockaway. It was where I rummaged and found weird things with weird covers and gave it a try. When I first started getting more independent, I would walk 2 miles between my house and Rockaway, staring at buses trying to figure out how they worked because I didn't know. I have a real love and fondness for Rockaway, and I'm glad Amoeba didn't destroy it, although it seems like gentrification might.
If the amoebas don't kill you.
The microbreweries will.
This next one goes out to all of you who swore by Napster in the early 2000s and whatever the company we were thinking of was called.
It's probably Crapster.
This is one not from LA, just like the next one you're going to do, but this particular location was a big part of the city for a while, so I'm going to try to focus mostly on just that store.
Yeah.
But we need just a brief rundown of the history of Tower Records.
Get out.
No.
Leave.
No, I'm not Tower Records. It started with a guy named Russ Solomon who started selling used 78s for 10 cents in his dad's drugstore in Sacramento in 1941. The name of that drugstore was Tower Drugstore because it was next to the Tower Theater in Sacramento.
Okay.
So by 1961, Solomon opened up his first dedicated record store on Watt Avenue in Sacramento called Tower Records. 1968, the San Francisco location opened, and now the Tower Records brand blows up, which takes us to the Sunset Strip, 8801 Sunset Boulevard. But before Tower opened up at this spot, you will find this location to be of great interest to fans of LA Meekly. I don't know if you knew this. First,
whoa.
I don't know if you...
Whoa, you're big fans of...
Do you
And then you
listen-
turn to the other host of the podcast like, you probably don't know this
Do
because
you
you're
listen?
dumb.
Do you ever listen? Oh, you didn't buy a shirt. The first thing built at this spot was in 1935. It was a restaurant called Simon's Drive-In. That's not the interesting part yet. But,
No.
Do you know Simon's Drive-In?
I'm thinking of the big photo book of LA, and there's it's not that.
No, it's not that. But it might be.
You don't know.
No, I saw it. I read your thoughts.
I have
I gotta see that movie.
Let's go right now.
I was reading your thoughts. I bet Ren was reading BB-8's thoughts.
Listen. We turn Siri on. Siri reads this.
Yeah.
We go see Star Wars. We come back. Siri's done.
I think that's a bad idea. But in 1945,
Yeah, Star Wars! Yeah, hit him with that thing. That laser sword thing. Hit him. Emperor, I love you.
so 1945, this place became Dolores's Drive-In, which is not a name I like. And then in the 50s, it became Jack's on the Strip Diner until the early 60s when the restaurant train was over and the building was demolished to make way for a showroom for Shoreham Towers Apartments. But then, here's where it gets interesting for you. In 1964, it came under control of a Mr. Earl William Muntz, or as you may know him, Madman Madman Muntz. This was Madman Muntz's store.
Really?
He opened up at
and
this
that became
spot.
Tower Records.
Kind of.
Okay.
It was. We talked about him in our local commercials.
It's
the
so
live
funny
show.
that you said Madman Muntz because I was like, TV. Like, oh no, that was his daughter's name.
Well, I mean, there's a reason he named his daughter TV. It was
Yeah.
here he developed his 4-track tapes, allowed people to listen to albums in their car, which in itself was revolutionary.
Yeah.
Not just radios in your Model T anymore. Now you can listen to cassettes.
You can pick
in
your own music,
Yeah.
which is what we do every day.
Thank you, Madman Muntz.
Thank you.
Thank you for your service.
Saluting him.
And he's saluting backwards. And his tongue is flapping everywhere. He sold hundreds of thousands of these things, and he pioneered car stereo systems in addition to already having popularized calling television TV and also being insane. So already this location had overall a lunatic. So already this location had serious music credentials, but not even the madman could hold on to that spot for very long. The store was closed in 1970 and then demolished. So that building's gone, but it was the spot.
It was that spot.
And that's just in time for Tower Records' big new expansion. So a new building was built just for them, for Tower Records, on this spot. In 1971, they opened their doors to the hip young crowd of music lovers desperate for a place to call the VW bus that they live in. This was the first Tower Records in Southern California, and it was in the perfect location at the perfect time to become a huge hit.
Yeah.
It was the early 70s, which means that there were a ton of high-profile bands either living in or coming to LA because so many record labels were now in the city thanks to Capitol Records trailblazing. The store was right down the street from the headquarters of a lot of those companies along the Sunset Strip. It was also within walking distance of where these bands would play and hang out, like the Whiskey and the Viper Room, the Roxy, the Rainbow Bar and Grill, where they'd hang out. Not Clumpsy. What's his name? The guy who would always be at the Rainbow Bar and Grill.
Lemmy.
Clumpsy. So right there, you've got a built-in community.
You don't know metal.
Yeah, I know Clumpsy though. So there's a built-in community, and the Tower brand was known and trusted already. So right off the bat, plus they were open until midnight every night and 1 a.m. on the weekends.
So you're talking about Wallichs up to a certain point where like kids didn't find this cool quite for like a day, but they found this cool, and this is what immediately happened up the street.
Exactly. It was like 2 miles away.
Yeah.
Dads were shopping there. Drop your kids off there.
Exactly.
The advantage Tower had over a place like Wallichs, which was still open but dying very painfully when they just opened, was since that they were a big chain, they had low prices and deep back catalogs that were in stock.
Okay.
Wallichs didn't have that. They had all the new stuff, but they also had old, hard to find stuff on hand. Like, oh, do you have the first album ever by
The Birds?
Yeah,
which
The
is
Birds.
like a year old.
Yeah, that really obscure band, The Birds. In 1974, Guinness Book of World Records named them the biggest record store in the world.
Wow.
As we've seen so many times before in LA history, what was so great over on this part of the street was literally killing the old guard a few blocks away. It was draining the life force, much like Starkiller Base. We gotta go. Their staff was also extremely knowledgeable and passionate about music, and of course they were snobbish. Their slogan was no music, no life, which few of them had. There was also no dress code for the staff, which made it feel like it was being run by the underground scene, even though it was the definition of a corporate entity at this point. But it felt like, this is a cool place. It felt like a Rockaway Records, but it was not. Like, this was engineered to be like that.
For sure.
Being on Sunset Boulevard, of course, that meant that there were always big advertisements for new albums plastered all over the building above and
some of my favorite photos from LA 70s Sunset Strip are like the billboards above Tower Records.
It's all the iconic images. Like, that's how you know what year it was.
Yeah.
It was all, their iconic red and yellow paint job. It was just a cool place to be, and all the cool people went there. And since it was where it was also where every celebrity and musician in town went to shop or to perform. On any given day, you would run into a local DJ or Ringo Starr or Robert Plant or Stevie Wonder or Ella Fitzgerald or George Burns, because he has to be in every episode now.
He's the male counterpart to Mary Pickford.
Yeah. Oh, the children they could have had. Those small bug-eyed children. But what would Gracie think? Everybody had album signings there. Bob Marley. There's pictures of Bob Marley signing.
That's pretty cool.
It's weird. John Lennon did a TV ad for them for that location in 1974. Axl Rose worked a Tower Video across the street. The store would open early exclusively for Elton John when he was in town to come shop alone. Like I said, the tons of bands played concerts there to promote their new albums. David Lee Roth rappelled down a fake Matterhorn they built on top of it for his new album, Matterhorn. Alice Cooper drove up in a big trash truck for his new album, Trash. Someone else did something literal for their new album, Literal. Duran Duran had a reunion concert there in 1997. It was hip, it was new, it captured the scene, the music scene of the 70s, 80s, and 90s. I kept thinking of it like being for music what Meltdown was for comics. comics
yeah.
and comedy, but it was way more high profile and way more popular. It wasn't the first Tower Records location, but it did quickly become the most well-known Tower Records location.
Yeah, it's iconic. It has documentaries about it.
Well, as the Colin Hanks documentary from 2015 was called, in reference to the sign put up outside, in reference to the George Harrison song, All Things Must Pass. Just as Wallichs was destroyed by Tower Records, pretty much, a new enemy emerged to destroy the victor, the internet. In 1999, Tower Records had almost 200 locations in 15 countries and was taking in $1 billion a year. That same year, Napster came out. In the year 2000, Tower Records lost $10 million. In 2001, they lost $90 million. So this ship was sinking fast. They tried discounting their prices, but even then, it was like $12 an album when you could get it online for free. Why would you?
When you could download a virus for the same name of a hit track for free.
When you can lose your grandma's identity to a Russian person for free. It pays for itself. Pretty soon, 3 of the major music companies stopped selling to Tower Records because they weren't paying their bills. It came out that the company was $210 million in debt. They filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy in 2004 and then again in 2006, and that was when the company had to be sold to the LA-based Great American Group for $134 million, who specialized in liquidation, and they put their specialties to work right away and began liquidating Tower Records. They had 89 stores left that were still open, including the Sunset Strip location. That location closed that same year, with the rest of them in 2006. And in 2007, the building was turned into a giant ad for Mr. Megorium's Wonder Emporium. Tower Records...
All things must pass, indeed.
All things pass a Megorium. So Tower Records Sunset was gone, and with it took not only a bunch of small independent labels who depended on them to sell their albums, it also took an entire scene and spirit in the city with it. In 2007, it became a clothing store called Live on Sunset until 2012 when they closed, and it was being considered to be turned into a gym. The building sat empty for a couple years under constant threat of demolition, but it was saved in 2014 by Gibson Guitars, who signed a 15-year lease to turn it into a showroom. But then Gibson filed for bankruptcy in 2018.
Because people were downloading guitars. Because Guitar Hero came out.
I could buy one from Russia. Gibson now had to bail on the lease. So since then, it's basically been an empty building, which is insane that a building in a location like that could stay empty for coming up on 2 years now. But then I saw that the rent there is $230,000 a month, and I thought that makes sense.
Let it sit there.
Let it die.
Yeah.
It's currently up for lease, but a lot of groups have been trying for years to get it designated as a historic landmark and to try to turn it into a music museum or a Sunset Strip museum. But here's the problem. There really isn't anything spectacular about this building itself. It isn't a nice building architecturally, and it's not the same building Madman Muntz was in, which could have been something. Yeah. So in designating it, they wouldn't be designating the building itself. They'd be designating the stuff that happened inside the building, which also is tricky because there's absolutely no residue of what used to be there inside of the place, and the sign isn't even still up. It's
a coffin with no body.
It's a real Dracula situation. It's a tricky case to consider it for historic designation. It's hard to historically protect a scene that no longer exists. Yeah. It's times like these that makes me glad I lost that election for city council by such a big landslide. But if you're really itching for some Tower Records, you can go to the 9-story one they still have in Tokyo.
Are you going?
I'm sleeping there.
It's a hotel too. I remember going to that. Did you ever go to that tower?
No, I never went there. Never. I would never go there. I was a Virgin Records kind of guy.
In high school, we would go to Melrose sometimes, and I would stop at Headline Records, which is a punk record shop there, and it's really great. I wanted to do a segment on it, but I ran out of time. I would just go in do you have any Charles Bronson? And then they'd have to just it's a French guy. I'm not gonna do a French accent, but yeah. Anyways, we'd also go to Sunset Strip. We would go to In-N-Out, and we would walk all the way to the Roxy and then take the bus all the way back and stop at
so you figured out the bus finally.
But we'd go to Meltdown, we'd go to that plaza where the movie theater is. Sometimes we see an independent movie. We'd go to Tower, we'd go to a newsstand, and then we'd walk by the Whiskey and the Roxy. Okay, the granddaddy of them all. The thing that probably helped kill Tower Records.
The
new
Phantom
scene.
Menace.
Yeah, the Phantom Menace. The new scene.
The new scene and soon to be old scene.
I'm going to be talking about Amoeba Music, which is yet another Los Angeles institution that happens to be a transplant. Amoeba Music starts in the Bay Area, Berkeley to be exact, on Telegraph Avenue.
Have you been to that one?
Yeah, I've been to all of them.
Oh, well, me too, but I didn't want to brag. Hang on. Siri, buy me a ticket to Berkeley.
Buy me first class ticket to Berkeley. I don't care how long the flight is. Oh, it's 20 minutes. Okay, fine. Amoeba Music starts in the Bay Area, Berkeley to be exact. Telegraph Avenue. I said that already.
I've been there.
I've been there my whole life. It was opened in 1990 by 3 guys and a lady: Mark Weinstein, Mike Boyder, Dave Prinz, and later Karen Pearson. Most of the information I found about the owner seemed to concentrate on Mark Weinstein, so a few words on him. Weinstein hails from Buffalo, New York, and from an early age was already working in record shops, starting at a place called Record Theater as an 8-track buyer, which is what? In 1979, he moved west to San Francisco, and at the end of the hippie era and the beginning of the West Coast punk era, he found himself working for what seems like a couple different record shops. He worked at Streetlight Records, but in Berkeley fell in with a couple friends, that's Boyder and Prinz, at Rasputin Records, which never closed, but it was stabbed, shot, castrated, beheaded, and drowned 6 times. In an interview with San Francisco Chronicle, they were asked why they chose the name Amoeba, and Mark Weinstein says, "We wanted to name our company something music." Yeah. The word Amoeba came up because it sounded good with music. We wanted it to be like a psychedelic kind of name that students would relate to. As it turned out, it's a great name for who we are and what we do. First of all, Amoeba split into 2. We'll get to that. And there's an amorphous nature to music.
And it infected other stores.
Yeah.
I get it.
Little did they know it would fulfill itself. And the name has a great quality of being like a metaphor for music, our growth, and who we are, which is pretty cool. The first Amoeba had plenty of competition with 5 other record shops already on Telegraph when they opened, but the guys persisted anyways, taking over a 3,500 square foot location that was formerly a Mexican restaurant. They later expanded that square footage to 12,000 square feet. They opened with 6,000 records and apparently made $10,000 in sales on their grand opening, which is crazy.
Wait a minute. How could they make $10,000 selling 6,000? Well, yeah, I guess they're not selling for $1 each.
Probably not.
Well, then I'm not shopping there.
One record was $9,000.
Why would I buy $1 record from Amoeba when I can go to Russia
and download a full vinyl? No questions. I just have to leave my screen on all night.
My parents can't call their parents because I'm downloading the latest Coldplay.
They can't call the hospital where my grandpa's at. So they had a great selection of hard to find things, and they were a used record store, so they could find some things cheap, and you could sadly drag a box of old records when you needed gas money. So it became like a hangout, like a music hangout. People were selling records, people were buying records, it was like another music hangout. It became so popular that in 1997, Prinz, Weinstein, and Boyder, and now Karen Pearson, opened up a second, even bigger location. The San Francisco Amoeba lied at the end of historic Haight-Ashbury near Golden Gate Park and took over the location of an old bowling alley, which is Park Bowl. This meant the store was vast and wide open, taking up 24,000 square feet. That's my favorite one. It's the San Francisco
and slippery as hell.
You need special shoes if you want to walk around the DVD section. The store became ever more popular, saw more foot traffic because it's at Haight-Ashbury, and it became like a bigger
and we do mean
spot.
Feet. Ugh, disgusting hippies.
It was an even bigger hangout spot because of its location, because of it was a bigger store. They had harder to find things there. I've been to that one. That was my favorite. It's pretty cool. But
I've been there too. Yeah, I did heroin there.
I bought weird stuff from a guy at McDonald's. I think I went to both Amoebas in one trip, and then when we came back, we went to San Francisco one day. It was miserable. The second day we did the second Amoeba in Berkeley, and then we drove back down to LA, and on purpose, 15 minutes before it closed, we went to the Hollywood, so we went to all 3 Amoebas in one weekend. Why? Probably bought one thing. But a weird thing began to happen at the Bay Area Amoebas. They started getting visited by more and more Southern Californians who either made Amoeba part of their tourist trip or was the entire reason for their trip up north. And with more and more frequency, the founders were being asked...
These obsessively compulsive weirdos.
And with more and more frequency, the founders were being asked, would there ever be an Amoeba in the Southland? The answer came in early 2001 when it was announced in full-page ads in our local papers.
America attacked.
A day that lives... That's it. The biggest and the best indie record store coming to LA. The highest prices paid ever for good collections. We have over $1 million to spend. We are only buying now. The faster you get us your stuff, the faster we will open.
You should have saved some of that money.
I've taken the best records there, and they're like, nah.
I'll give you a pin.
Yeah, exactly. I'll let you park for free.
The only money I've gotten from them was when I returned something.
When I asked for my change. Yeah. The founders purchased half of a block on Sunset and Cahuenga next to the Cinerama Dome, which, from what I can tell, used to be a warehouse. Not the spot, not Cinerama Dome.
Warehouse Records?
Yeah, it was probably a warehouse. I think it was a warehouse. So they would visit and were scouting a place to open it, and they were kind of...
It's so weird that, like, for all of these, like, Tower Records opened up 5 years before Wallichs closed.
Yeah.
And this place opened up 5 years before Tower Records closed.
Isn't that weird? Yeah.
The Angel of Death is coming.
They were scouting for a location, and they wanted to open up in Santa Monica, and people were pointing them in the direction of Hollywood, say, don't open in Santa Monica, nobody will ever go. People were telling them, no, you got to open up in Hollywood, because that's one of the 3 centers of the city.
Yeah, you like homeless people. You're from the Bay Area.
You like skeezy Jack in the Box, right? Open up right here. Every single time, I'm like, oh, is someone always getting arrested here? Talking to locals, they found out that Hollywood Boulevard was for tourists and drug addicts, and Sunset Boulevard was for locals and drug addicts.
Local drug addicts.
Amoeba Hollywood would be the biggest of the stores. The vast Amoeba San Francisco being only a fourth of what ours is. Amoeba Hollywood occupies 28,000 square feet just for retail items and another 15,000 square feet for their storage and offices. To open with, the founders purchased 150,000 new CDs, 350,000 used CDs, and 200,000 used LPs of a wide variety of genres. To stock up the used items, they scoured the country for the best finds. Overall, they spent $2 million in the LA area alone on stock and another 500,000 around the rest of the country. They're buying up people's entire private collections of jazz LPs and another 200,000 items from a former DJ in Hawaii. They bought the entire stock of a punk record shop in Illinois, along with their posters for exploitation movies. Like, they were just buying entire stores.
They are amoebas. They're absorbing everything around them.
Amoeba Hollywood is 2 stories. There's a giant bottom floor for music and of so many genres, used and new. LPs are down there, cassette tapes. Later, they would add books and band merch. The walls are covered in posters of movies and bands and just general hip people things. There's a back area with
Picture
like jazz. The guy outside of the Walgreens that used to be Wallichs, who just said daggers to me, I was walking by, loves that poster. And they built a stage for live acts and guests for signings, as by this time all amoebas would accommodate a space to have an event space. The second floor would house movies, DVDs, Laserdisc, and VHS.
Yeah, that's where I saw Wes Anderson.
That's where you saw Wes Anderson.
I can't remember. I've seen one concert there.
Oh, yeah?
I can't remember. They don't move like all of the shelving.
No.
So
you stand in
the... Yeah, you're like in the middle.
Yeah, you're
shelving.
like listening to a band and you're like, oh, I didn't know they had this City Opera CD.
Brilliant marketing. Brilliant.
They know what they're doing. Opening day for Amoeba was in November of 2001, and there was a huge line of hundreds of people waiting for hours to get in to snag their original run LP of Jefferson Starship. By the time it opened, people were so eagerly waiting over Amoeba that, there was hundreds of people outside.
That's weird, because like that's the time when everyone was downloading their music online.
Yeah.
Why are they suddenly interested in buying music? And
I think at the time, not everything was online.
No, but Tower Records was certainly suffering from being online. But I guess Tower Records was so expensive compared to Amoeba, where I could get this used.
I went to Tower Records all the time. I can count on my one hand how many times I bought something.
I mean, you're talking about like, we talked about Target and that. I remember when the year was when I was interested in buying physical CDs, but it would be like $25 for like, it was crazy prices.
Can you imagine someone selling a CD now for $25? I would
take my money.
Amoeba will sell.
This better be signed by all the Beatles.
Amoeba will sell something for like $15, but it'll be like, I can't find this on the internet.
That's exactly the things I've gotten at Amoeba are things I can't find on the internet or movies that like I don't know where to stream this.
That's the thing that helped me survive. I didn't write this down, so I'm just speaking off the top of my head. Is that they found those pockets of such specific specialty stuff that like I had heard about this on the internet. Nobody, like I had like maybe 2 songs off this record of Del Shannon covering Hank Williams, and now it's all here. And even Spotify, like I just don't like Spotify. I don't like it.
I don't like it.
I didn't like Pandora. iTunes has saved me a couple times, but like honestly, like I would rather buy a physical CD than buy an entire album off iTunes because I want the physical object still.
I'm halfway between the physical people and the streaming people because I want everything on my iPod, which I still listen to my iPod, not iPhone, iPod. It's physically on my iPod, but
which I carry
still
around. This is a bulge in my pocket that women are sweaty whenever I come near them.
Is that an iPod in your pocket? Yes. Classic.
The wheel spinning, actually. There's music playing. I shouldn't be. Yeah, no, I'll get CDs from the library and burn them immediately and then take them back to the library because I want both.
I get books from the library and I burn them immediately.
And Ray Bradbury comes and shakes my hand and then I have to give him a ride home. So Amoeba obviously became a popular store and only grew from there, attracting all kinds of music fans from all genres, all types of buyers. Amoeba allowed people to become music fanatics because this store had such a wide variety of hard-to-find things that no big chain could possibly have. Tower, Sam Goody, Best Buy, Virgin Megastores, they didn't have these albums that Amoeba carried. And they had some items used that prices big stores could not match. Part of the big draw was that while big music stores concentrated on and stocked what was popular of every genre, Amoeba stocked everything. And they promoted everything. Popular stuff was advertised right next to up-and-coming good stuff that you've never heard of. And they're promoted the same way. They're given the same value on the shelves and everything. No emphasis on either. Little bands appreciated it more, so it seemed like every little band had a chance to be promoted by this huge music store in the center of one of the biggest cities in the world. Amoeba had become as much of a hangout and a tourist spot. Like, I've taken visitors to Amoeba based on their request. They come and they're like, well, we're going to go to Hollywood. Can we stop by Amoeba? I'm like, yeah, you have to buy something. But yeah.
For me.
Sure. Pay tribute. The collection is insane, but the atmosphere, this like airplane hangar filled with hard to find items is stunning. The live performances there are also a reason that Amoeba has gained the kind of hip notoriety.
It's pretty crazy. Like Paul McCartney played there. Speaking of,
we'll get to. Well, all I say is that he played there. Like I was saying, the stage was less for top of the charts performers and more for hot and upcoming artists with talent,
like Paul McCartney.
Like Paul McCartney, who's an up and coming artist. And one day you're gonna hear about this Paul McCartney guy. He was with this other band for a while. But you heard about George Harrison? They're friends. These two are friends.
They grew up together
in like Livertown. What's it called?
Liver Swamp.
So yeah, they had like up and coming bands with talent, but also they had renowned bands and performers that had reached the highest point of their subgenre and were idolized by the few who loved them but never hit the charts, which is way more important because Amoeba now exists in the same realm as the Troubadour, the Palladium, the Roxy, the Whiskey, blah blah blah. They're still like Amoeba is part of that whole thing. The way Wallichs was part of that scene, the way Tower was part of that scene.
Concerts are free there, right?
Pretty sure. Yeah.
I mean, you can't fit that many people in.
And how are you going to kick people out that are already in there and make them pay? So yeah, I'm pretty sure
that pay.
The biggest performances, let's get to that. Lana Del Rey performed there in 2012. One of my favorite bands.
She was in the Beatles.
You know that she was Pete Best. One of my favorite bands, Yola Tango, did a show there. The punk band Death played at Amoeba, which was the one that had the documentary about them. Gary Newman, Wanda Jackson, Big Sandy, the Fly Right Boys. Maybe the biggest name to step on the Amoeba stage was a former Beatle, like you said, Paul McCartney.
Who?
That happened in 2007, and he even released a live recording of that album.
Really?
Yeah. My two personal experiences, you want to hear about them?
Yeah.
The Violent Femmes, which is one of my favorite bands. And I got all my friends from high school to go with me. We packed a car. I drove everybody. There was a huge line out the door.
Yeah.
I let everybody off to find parking. It took me 30 minutes to find parking. I came back and they wouldn't let me inside. So I watched the Violent Femmes from outside without being able to hear them.
Quintessential Greg.
Yep.
Quintessential Greg experience.
Here's the other one. Me and Ed went there because Patton Oswalt was going to perform there midday in the weekend.
Yeah, I remember this.
And I was right up front. We got there like 40 minutes early, and I was like, I got to see Patton Oswalt. I love everything about Patton Oswalt. And people start to come around me, and there's clapping, and Patton Oswalt comes out, and just at that moment, I get lightheaded, and I think I'm going to throw up. So I have to walk all the way to the back of Amoeba, which is the front of the store, and I had to take my socks off and like fan myself because I thought I was going to pass out.
And you were walking around the neighborhood yelling daggers.
Same thing happened at Oh Hello, but I'm not going to get into that because we're not doing an episode about UCB. Anyways,
I saw Glenn Hansard and the people from Once.
Oh, okay.
I saw them perform.
Okay, that's a pretty good show.
Yeah. And I stood right by the peas.
I think the one successful show I did go to, I think like the Horror Pops played there with Necromantics, and I think I was there for like a little bit of it. And then after the show, like it's so weird because they'll end the show and then they get off the stage and then you're just like in the same space because there's
buy things. I'll cattle prodding all of you.
Our record's over there. They also started a really good video series on the website called What's in My Bag. Have you ever seen these?
No.
They ask popular musicians about what are their gets, like when they go to Amoeba, what's in their bag, what are you buying? So you get to hear from people like Alice Baggs, Slick Rick, Kid Koala, Shannon Shaw, Ice Cube, Fred Armisen, Chris Novoselic from Nirvana, Moby, The Zombies, Elvira. They all have these episodes.
What was Wes Anderson buying?
Once. He was just buying Paul Thomas Anderson movies because he's like, who is this guy?
They also, I don't know if you mentioned this, they have a online blog sort of thing that like, it's like a history blog. Like I've used them as research sometimes where they're pretty in-depth with like LA history for some reason.
I think I've crossed that path one time, but it was like music related, so I thought it was just music related.
No, they've done like, I mean, maybe they try to tie it into music, but there's certainly been articles about like oil, and I don't know why Amoeba is telling me about oil.
If they've started a podcast, they would probably be better than us.
Hell did you just say? Yeah, but they'd go bankrupt again. Not us
because we didn't start with money.
We're in the black. I think that's good.
According to the FBI that's listening to us on my webcam of my laptop, it's good. Yeah, so like there's this whole, you can watch one of your favorite musicians talk about being Amoeba and what they buy. You can listen to an album that was recorded at Amoeba, and then you go to Amoeba, and it's more than just a store at this point. It's like a communal experience. Like you're involved in the music scene if you go and shop at Amoeba. It's part of the LA music scene history now. So Amoeba Hollywood kicks traditional music chains right square in the ass. Hooray. All is well. No. The most negative effect Amoeba had was on the long-running independent record stores that populated LA. Like a friend of mine in high school, his dad had 2 record shops in Hollywood, and they hated Amoeba. One of them had to close, the other one's still open, but it's like less of a record shop now because they can't compete with Amoeba.
It's the same thing of, I can't believe Borders is closing.
Yeah.
The store that
destroyed
all of the other stores.
Yeah. I was thinking that because I had to go buy a book for a Christmas present, and I'm like, okay, there's no more big bookstores anymore. Not that
Barnes and Noble.
I'm not gonna go to Barnes and Noble.
You've fallen through the cracks. You're not digital. You're not specialized enough.
But because the small record shops we had in our area places like Rockaway or Rhino or Aaron's or Tang or Headline. Their whole essence of operation was offering hard-to-find records on a much smaller mom-and-pop scale. They couldn't compete with Amoeba. Plus, you also had Napster happening.
And that other company we can't remember the name of.
The death nail for so many small record shops that were barely hanging on after Amoeba moved to town. So Amoeba survived because it offered more than just records. It was a scene. It was a place to be seen. So Amoeba defied trends. Just thinking about Amoeba as in the totality, the first shop opened in 1990 when sales of vinyl records were dying. The second shop opened up in 1997, 2 years before file sharing software changed the music industry.
When disc sales were dying.
Exactly. Amoeba Hollywood opened right now. It has to survive through streaming music, and it's persisted, or has it? So after all of this needs to be said. If you've never been to Amoeba,
better go quick.
Better go quick, because this almost 20-year alley institution is set to be demolished, and in its wake will be yet another housing complex. The news comes as a huge blow to people who love Amoeba and are frankly tired of losing things we love to housing complexes, or my favorite Pandaria becoming a hipster bakery. Like, we're just tired of that happening. Tired of things becoming housing complex just to make room for people who come here in the Olympics who are not going to live here. They're just going to stay for a little bit. So everything's become an Airbnb, and we're going to lose a big chunk of our history because of this. Petitions were going around to block this move from happening to Amoeba, but it was stopped short by the owners of Amoeba, who sold the property in 2015 for $34 million to whatever GPI Companies is. Where Amoeba Music stands now, in years to come, will be a 28-story tower holding 232 residential units and 7,000...
Tower of records.
That housing complex is going to have like commercial street space, which is okay, great, but it's not going to be Amoeba. The city council even had to approve zoning changes to the block.
all new Arby's.
Like
28-story Arby's.
The city council even had to approve zoning changes to make this switcheroo happen. And apparently, Amoeba is opening a new spot not too far from its current location, and nobody really knows where yet, and it's going to have a weed dispensary, so now I'm double annoyed. And since then, like, Echo Park and Silver Lake are now infested with small record shops that are, so there's no shortage of places that'll overcharge you.
Yeah.
But we've, again, are losing a big sense of history here for nothing.
Well, those small stores, every single one, like there's some in Studio City, but those ones that are kind of like almost more of a clothing store than a record store. It's crazy the prices that they are charging for, like 60. Like, I could buy a video game for this price.
It's truly insane business plan that only rich kids could do. The Portlandia sketch, was it 2 shirts? And it's just 2 girls for a commercial for their boutique, which has 2 shirts. It's that. It's just like, a small record shop that has 19 records that are all $60, and then shirts that they screen printed that are selling for $40 because they all think that they're Ruka or whatever.
I mean, we should start releasing albums. I hear there's big money in it. Let's talk about what your favorite record stores that are still around. Rockaway, apparently you love.
Rockaway. There's a small one in Long Beach. I feel guilty talking about it because it's probably going to close down and become
Queen Mary headquarters.
Yeah, Netflix is going to buy it and turn into a Netflix record store. On 4th Street in Long Beach, in one of the vintage shops, sharing a space, is a guy named Big Ed, and he just sells really incredibly, when I mean hard to find, the most hard to find rockabilly and blues and rhythm and blues CDs.
What's his name? Big Billy?
Big Ed. That's probably one of my favorite shops. Poobah in Pasadena is really great.
Yeah.
Headline's a really good one if you're looking for punk stuff. There's another one that we like. What is it?
The one in Encino?
Oh, yeah.
CD Trader? Is that the one you're thinking of?
Yeah, CD Trader.
That's a cool store. I haven't been there in a long time, but I like, of course, because it's right near me, but it's also a really cool store, Freakbeat Records.
Good.
Yeah,
I found some really hard.
That's a really cozy place, and my favorite record store is the records section at Barnes and Noble. I love
it's
it.
The vinyl section.
It's 2 media forms that are going out of style. This episode brought to you by Apple Music.
I mean, this is a story about things swallowing other things, swallowing other things, swallowing other things in a city that just continually swallows things.
Well, the world spins round and round like a record, baby. Round,
like a record, baby.
round.
I just remember the chorus for that song, so I could just repeat it.
Who knows what form we will be listening to music by the end of the decade.
My brother got me AirPods, and I'm seriously terrified of technology now. It's like just going to be a chip.
The wires are gone now.
You sync a thing up in your brain.
Did you think about Jan and Dean? No, the Safaris.
Did you mean Jan and Dean? No. First of all, this made me want to listen to punk again, which I did not want to do. No interest in listening to punk, but here we are. I'm listening to Housebag again. Part of me is like, oh, good that Napster came along and it made musicians just like, they weren't just pumping out records anymore. They had to go back on the road and start performing. And that's kind of good because it like, get out there and meet your audience, but at the same time, time you think about people like Link Ray, who were like ancient, who still had to perform because they lost all this money.
Look at the Rolling Stones.
Jesus, yeah.
Is that why they're still not? I mean, the Rolling Stones must have money, but I would imagine they've lost. I don't know.
I mean,
I don't know why the Rolling Stones are still going.
They probably owe so much money for everything they've done. There. Like if you're a band that puts out an album, you get fronted for the money, and you just go on tour to pay it back.
Yeah, I like that. We're talking about the Rolling Stones as if they're like a security guard who can't retire. But
they might be.
They're probably still going because they make millions of dollars every time they go on tour. But yeah, if you're just a everyday, like you, whatever, like I'll put out a record and
that'll be that for 10
there's
years.
My retirement plan. Nope, not anymore.
Yeah, the way comedy is with Netflix specials right now, where you're like, I'll just put a Netflix special and I'll just coast. And then in a couple of years when comedy tanks again. It's tanking right now.
Certainly is on this podcast. The bubble has burst.
That's me falling off a cliff.
Just the idea of record stores and talking about them makes me, because I have a record player. It's not great, but I have a record player and thinking like, I want to go out and get some hard to find records.
Yeah.
And I have records and I never listen to them because it's a hassle.
For me, space is an issue with everything, so I can't just put up a record player and start, because I like playing records. It was one of the first times, and it's also like the only time I'll listen to a record all the way through.
Yes, and also when I was in high school, I had to do in my film class, or like I think it was 2 different classes where my final project was in my film class. I did a documentary on the Beatles, and in my English class, it was like a research paper on the Beatles. So I was listening.
You just transcript the documentary.
Pretty much. Kill 2 birds with one. This bird can sing.
Kill 2 birds with Mark David Chapman. Go ahead.
Kill 2 birds with one little gun. I have very fond memories of sitting in my room with my parents' old Beatle albums, and for like the first time ever using their old record player and listening to it was Sgt. Pepper. I was listening to Sgt. Pepper in its entirety on vinyl. It was great. Like just listening to it, thinking about it, and then writing about it. It was great. Like that. It makes you appreciate it more. Obviously, people have said this a million times, but it is fun.
The
ritual of it is nice.
Yeah. Brand Library in Glendale has a record player that you could just sit and bring your own records and just sit in a little corner, a little nook, and listen to records. And then they also have records that you could check out there. It's really great that they do that, because so many people don't even have a lot of people have access to record players. They're not like impossible to buy. But like if somebody who just wants to come and like just sit and not own a record player and just listen to one, that's available to people.
Yeah. Well, you know where they got that. Wallichs Music City. Thank you, Mr. Wallach.
Thank you, Madman Months.
If you want to thank us, like you thank Mr. Wallach every night before you go to bed, you could leave us a review on Apple Music is what it's called. Or if you still use iTunes, like we do, like us two that are stuck in the cracks between 2 times.
We're stuck in the hellhole that is probably 2015.
You can find us on there. Leave us some stars. If you want, you can leave us some words as well. 5 stars is nice. It helps us get more noticeable and more legitimate to people.
Follow us on Instagram, Allie_Meekly, or Twitter, we're at Allie Meekly.
If you want to send us a listener question or suggestion or comments, want to be a subject of a field trip episode, email us on la.meekly@gmail.com. Follow us on Gmail.
You can join us on Patreon to help support us. For $5 a month, we will send you a handwritten postcard from a fun little place.
Yeah.
Handwritten, emphasis on handwritten.
Hey, this month we got some autographed ones.
We did, and a couple of people are going to get
something that's not worth money, but it's sentimentally nice.
Sentimentally nice.
However you're listening to this, I guess some people aren't aware of the different ways you can listen. You can also listen to us on YouTube, on Spotify.
2 very easy ways to listen
Pocket
to us.
Casts, I believe. And
those are words you're making up.
No, you can
listen to us on Hot Pockets and
you can listen to us on Chair Desk. You can listen to us.
You can listen to us on Hot Pockets like the FBI does whenever I'm home talking about my neighbors.
Whenever I'm microwaving tinfoil, to throw off the signals. They say I'm crazy. They're the ones doing it. Those are all the ways you can help support us, and we hope you have a good start to the year 2020. I know for me it's certainly going to be better because my neighbors are gone, and I hope they die in the street. Oh, yeah, and I'm married.
You're married, and your neighbors are living in a Jeep
and I'm going to
now.
start taking up fencing. Life is looking up.
I can't wait to meet this new decade Daniel, who's going to be so much meaner and more conservative.
It's going to be a lot more capes in my life. So, yeah, that's been yet another episode of L.A. Meekly, the podcast putting radio out of business since 2013.
You mean I can't download this radio show? What? I don't understand.
How do I listen to your podcast on my Model T? Just get YouTube. Oh, God, how many
Just
times?
hook it up to your oven. That's where all the music's downloaded.
That's where the FBI does it.